tension and intensity in music are quite different. When we say tension, we mean the interior strength. But when we say intensity, we mean the exterior intensity, strength. And so when we say intensity, we say loudness. And of course, I can change it. I can play louder or softer. But when we talk about tension, we will see that the performer, the player, has no way to change it. How can the composer, right, create tension? Well, first of all, rhythmical tension. For instance, I can have a basic rhythm. Now I can have something like this, or triplets, and so on. So what am I doing? I'm just opposing different values, and this is a way of creating tension. Melodic tension. I can have, of course, the melody changing direction, going upwards and then downwards and so on and on. This is creating tension. And also, I can have tension when I just make a jump and I, so to say, increase the direction that I am following. For instance, I go up and suddenly I jump up an octave, or I can do the same going downwards. I can do. So also, this is another way to create some tension. Then I have, of course, harmonic tension. Well, if sounds have many harmonics in common, well, there is no much tension. If they have just a few harmonics in common, well, a lot of tension. We can have just not so much tension, even less, some tension, a lot of tension. Then we have color, because dark color and bright color, when we go from the dark color to the brighter, well, this is something that increases the tension in a way, because we, of course, when we think of a bright color, we think normally of high notes. And so it just brings some tension, even changing the color, and it goes, maybe we can play something like, and there's another one. If we have a chord, or we can just take two notes right together, and if we think of the lower note in relation with the upper note, well, if you have a strong bass, it is going to have a little more tension. Why? Because the upper note is going to fall to sound exactly in the area of the harmonics of the bass note. For instance, the second note is just in the middle of the harmonics of the first, or like this. But if I soften the bass, less tension, you see, because we have no interfering in a way, right? So the essence, we can say, of tension of tension, not of the intensity, right? Intensity is how I play, as I said before, but the essence of tension is opposition. We have to create oppositions. And once again, tension, so opposition, is the basic characteristic of the developing of a composition. Because with opposing elements, the composition, we can say, becomes alive. We have impulses and resolutions. We have extroverted situations and introverted situations. And so, what about intensity and tension? Once again, if we compare the two, is it possible for a player to change intensity? Yes, of course. We said that before. But is it now, ask yourself, possible for the player to change tension? Actually not. So this is one of those things that made Celibidache very not very well accepted in the academic world of music, because he used to say these things. He used to say there's a part of music which is absolutely impossible to interpret. When say, I'm going to have this wonderful interpretation, right? This is not something that you can change with your ideas or with your personality or with your feelings or whatever. Of course, there's a certain part that you can change, which is, of course, the intensity. Of course, you can change the speed. There are a lot of things that you can do. But actually, what about the tension of that written piece? Because we are talking about written music. Well, you cannot do much, or you can do nothing actually, because you have to. The only thing that you can do is just recognize that kind of tension wanted by the composer himself. He wanted to create this opposition and this melody going down and then going up, and then you can see that the he's asking for a forte in this chord, or maybe he wants to jump up and then jump down, etc. Rhythmically, he's creating so many oppositions. So you can recognize the tension, but you cannot say, here we have no tension, if the tension is actually there. So he used to say, maybe one can just ignore the tension is high or low, but you cannot change it. This is not something that you should, consider as the interpretation of one person. It's not possible. And this is very, objective in a way. But there's a subjective part where you make your decisions and you speed it up or slow it down or play louder or play softer and many other things that you can do. But not there. And probably, if we think, the only possible way that a performer has to change a little bit the tension of a certain passage is just the last one that I said, when you decide to soften the basses, because if I have a chord and I just play a strong bass, okay, I know that this is going to have a lot of tension. If I make a soft bass, I know that there will be less tension. This is probably the only thing that one can do concerning tension. Intensity can be changed, let's say, whenever you want, more or less. But tension is not something that you can interpret.